Hello, welcome back to a brand new Corn Nation Overreaction. I'm your host, Greg Mahochko. That guy over there, Haas Reuter. Haas, it's good seeing you again, and it's good celebrating another dub.
Yes, it is, Greg. And you know what they call 3 in a row?
That's a streak, baby. That's a winning streak.
A winning streak. And one more, by God, to bowl eligibility. I feel like I'm on the verge of like cutting a Ric Flair 1980s WCW promo just because I'm so fucking excited.
Well, you know, we'll get there. But I like how Matt Rule just a few weeks ago said, "Hey, when looking at, he was asked at a press conference or something about that, about the rest of the schedule. I think this was after the Michigan game. He says, there's not a team out there that we can't beat. There's not a team out there that can't beat us."
Exactly. Walk the razor's edge.
And what Nebraska was able to do this past Saturday, they had no business winning the game. 5 turnovers. The defense, we've said it before, the defense, they deserve a break, but they deserve like all the nil money. Throw all the nil money at this defense.
That
because
and a quarterback. That and a quarterback.
We could use one of those too.
Yeah.
But the defense, well, let's get into it. Scoreless first quarter. Nebraska looking like they had against at the beginning of the Northwestern game a little over a week ago, at the end of the Illinois game, just stumbling out of the gate. They muffed the I can't remember now if I think they lost that kickoff on a fumble, but the defense held. The story of the season at post Michigan is the defense held. The first score of the game doesn't happen until Nebraska finally gets into the end zone almost 5 minutes into the second quarter. When that first quarter is going on and you're watching Nebraska offense, not the defense, but the offense just continue to mistake after mistake, give the ball away. What's your thought? Because I'm screaming internally.
You know what? Earlier in the season, I was screaming internally. Now I've tried to take the approach of just accepting the offense for what it is.
Okay.
And, celebrating the successes. So if we get a 7-yard run, damn, that's 7 yards,
That is, yeah.
That's a big accomplishment. But right in this game, I found myself, and it's funny that you mentioned this because I have the perfect anecdote from the game. After we went up 7-0, after we went up 14-0, sorry, we got the ball back on another stop. And I was so excited to get the ball back. I'm like, yeah, let's go down there, put some more points on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I'm watching our offense line up, and I'm just kind of, looking at who's on the field, Haarberg, Emmett Johnson, the freshman receivers, Fedoni, and I'm just like, it kind of brought me back to earth on what we're working with right now.
Right.
And I just kind of took a deep breath, and I was like, let's just get some yards, maybe flip field position a little bit. So like the expectations, like I'm not burning internally now like I was against Minnesota, Colorado, Northern.
Right.
By the time Northern Illinois wrapped up, I was kind of like, okay, I know what we are.
We're a young team that's going to have to figure it out. Now, Fox put up a graphic, and I don't, like we talk about it, and we talk about the offense and all the injuries, but because they've happened over time, I don't, we don't necessarily feel the blunt of it, but brunt, not blunt. Blunt is
it's
different.
like death of 1,000 cuts.
Well, but then Fox put up a graphic that said that since basically the week 1 starters and the week 9 starters, I guess, 8 out of 11 are new faces that didn't start against Minnesota on that Thursday night game. And we knew about it because we talked about it. We lost all the linemen last week against Northwestern, and a quarterback and a couple of receivers and a couple of running backs, and they've just all slowly fallen away. But when you got hit with the 8 out of 11 guys, and that Nebraska's still finding ways. Like, this is a team. If these circumstances were being presented to our former head coach, but we're looking at like 1 or 2 wins.
Oh yeah, if not winless.
I mean,
this is the same guy who started 0-6 with the team that had a lot of NFL guys on it.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know. I have a difficult time conceding to any group of 5
directional schools.
So sorry to offend the Northern Illinois Huskies or the Latex of the world. But no, go ahead.
That's a really good point about how we've weathered the storm despite losing 8 of our original 11 offensive starters. And it makes you wonder, like, what would we look like right now if if we still had all the stars, if we had one of those years that we were injury free,
right?
Major injury free, which law of averages says that year's got to be coming around for us at some point, because I swear we've been plagued by injuries like this for the past 15 years. So if we had our full complement of the guys that we went through fall camp with on the offensive side of the football, there's a really good chance that, we're scoring. We're probably still 5-3, but we're scoring a lot more points because, Minnesota, Colorado to start the year, that's 2 of our losses. We were never beating Michigan, but I want
but they were cheating, so
I want to segue real quick over to the talk about Minnesota and Colorado here.
Okay.
If we were to play them within the next 2 weeks, we would win both those games. And I think that we might have to go dig it up on this podcast between you and I. But I think that there is a discussion somewhere that we both said that we thought we would finish with a better record than Deion Sanders in Colorado.
You said it. I know, and I quoted or paraphrased John Johnston, who said it on 5 Heart, but said that Nebraska would finish with a better record than Deion and the Buffs. And right now we're 5-3 and they're 4-4.
Yep. And you know what? I know I talked about getting a rematch with them in like the Las Vegas Bowl, but I've reached a point where it's fuck that. I don't want to, they can be even worse. Let's go to a better bowl game than the Vegas Bowl.
I have a feeling that if the 2 teams were to meet again, we would see just how dirty they could be.
Yep. Probably.
And I don't want to risk an off season of growth. I don't want to risk an off season of getting guys healed up, from either the ones who have been out for a while or the ones who've been playing this whole time. I don't want your body needs to recover from a football season. I mean, it needs to recover from anything. For me, it needs to recover from going up the stairs. And that's why the first thing I do when I go upstairs is I climb into bed, because I have an X amount of trips upstairs in my body every day. And that last one is carrying me. Now, sometimes, as we joke, I fall asleep in my chair. And so the last one's really the first one of the next day when I'm crawling up to bed at 3:34 in the morning.
Oh, that's always an interesting. When you wake up on in the living room,
it's the worst. But I don't want. Look, injuries happen in football. I get that. Nebraska certainly knows that, but I don't. We saw what Colorado did to Adrian Martinez. We saw it's not. And I also think that, especially if the game went the way that we foresee the game would go if we were to meet them again this year, I just see them being really chippy. And I just see them being really bitter, and I just see them. And this is not a Sean Payton mandate or anything like that. I'm not saying that Deion is necessarily endorsing this, but I would think that those players would get extra chippy and start, hey ref, look over there, and stomp a toe. Or the worst thing that could happen in football, we saw back in 2009, Texas A&M. When our was it Mike McNeil was getting punched in the taint?
Ben Cotton.
Was it Ben Cotton? I thought it was McNeil.
Ben Cotton getting punched in the old cotton balls.
Oh God.
To the point about the offense and how they've, when we were discussing personnel and how they could have grown game over game if we would have stayed healthy. I think that with a new coaching staff and personnel that they had to contend with this year, that this original complement of the personnel, if they could have stayed healthy, you would have seen them develop week over week, because it takes Satterfield, time to get used to who he has. I know people can say, hey, he's got fall camp, he's, got practice to decide what he's got. Well, there's a big difference still between practice and the live game situation. And I'm a big believer in you play the way you practice, but there's some things in practice that you just cannot replicate in games, and how a defense decides to defend against you an offense is one of them. You can have a good idea, but there's always still wrinkles, or, sometimes you just can't quite replicate that same athleticism on the scout team. But I would have really liked to see, with how we're taking hold as like an option-based quarterback run team, what would have happened had, Gabe Irvin stayed healthy and been able to get the hammer back? What could have happened if, maybe Xavier Betts doesn't leave the team? Maybe Eric Gilbert, is granted eligibility. He never has that, running with the law to get him arrested. And, along with Marcus Washington staying healthy, because right now the run game's starting to figure itself out. And we'll touch more on that later, both from a quarterback run game and a tailback run game. The offensive line's starting to figure itself out a little bit. Right now, what's really the governor on this offense is just the lack of skill and the lack of speed on the perimeter. Now, you can see when we have speed on the perimeter, Jalen Lloyd, Jaden Doss, Malachi Coleman, but the skill element's a little lacking there, just on the basis of them being young guys.
And I don't want to use the word immaturity, but inexperience at this level.
Inexperience, yeah.
And look, you mentioned there's been plenty of flowers given to Tony White, and rightfully so, for the
$1.5 million a year. I'm serious.
Sign that contract the day after Nebraska's last game and write him up. I don't think Marcus Satterfield's getting enough credit.
He's coaching his balls off.
He and to do it with, we talked about losing 8 of 11 game one starters. A lot of pieces being thrown in just to see kind of, it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, right? Mm-hmm. And not only that, but unlike offensive coordinators of the past, he's managing the players that he has. He's scheming to the talent he has, not trying to put the square peg in the round hole.
Yeah, he's not trying to install his offense year one and live with it, warts and all, like we've seen other coordinators do, whether that's Bill Callahan or, Tim Beck in 2011 or Danny Langsdorf or Scott Frost to a lesser extent, because that 2018 offense was actually quite good.
Or Mark Whipple. Oh, God. I couldn't resist. I had to do it because I know it'd make the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
The worst. It's like hearing nails on a chalkboard when I hear that name.
Oh, well, I got to tell you this. So we've got 3 boys, and the twins will be 3 here in February, sooner than it feels like. And Rob, the older of the twin, he's coming into this thing here recently where he's grinding his teeth.
Oh,
and like I know that, like, hey, buddy, grind your teeth. It's not bad. I mean, that's not good for your teeth, but something about that, just if we had a cat, it would make my cat it would make the cat jump from like normal to jumping all. That's what it does to my wife. She's like, she. I just sit back. I'm like, yep, don't grind your teeth, bud. It's not good for your teeth.
Not good. Yeah, we don't want to. Yeah, dentists, they're expensive.
Yep. Anyway, sorry about that sidebar.
No, you're good. Anytime there's a Mark Whipple comment, we need to have as many
lighthearted
hyperbole as we can. But what I was gonna say is, what we're running right now, and this is a part of the acceptance of where we're at as an offense that we were talking about earlier, where I'm not burning internally.
No.
One thing that I really admire about Satterfield is just accepting where we're at, running what is our best chance to win with the full knowledge that this is not what ultimately they want to run here. You know, that speaks volumes to a coach when they're able to adapt like that. That's what good coaching is. You know, that's why, you know, for example, Bill Callahan probably could have gone to a bowl game his very first year at Nebraska if he would have leaned on the run more instead of airing it out as much as he did. And so when you look at the offense in totality, the addition of the option pass, you started to see a little bit too late for my tastes in the game against Purdue, but you still started to see it, was a reliance on the tailback run game, the traditional handoff run game to salt the game away. Now, when option is our best opportunity to gain yards, but when you're having a fumbling problem and you almost let Purdue get back in this thing with the fumbles. Yeah. You need to, like, I appreciate what Rule said about, do you want to win the game or do you want to play football? And they wanted to keep playing, so they kept playing the way that they had their game plan, you know, laid out, you know, including with the option. But at some point, like in those situations, you need to kind of weigh out the odds and go with the most safe option. Get into the eye, get into the pistol, run the tailback downhill. You know, and like that's why I liked on, like, you know, Emmett Johnson's touchdown run. It was a 49ers play. You know, Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers run. It's counter solid. The line blocks without pulling any offensive lineman, and then an H-back and like two H-backs or an H-back and a fullback lead through as the pullers. Great way to seal the front, don't let any run-throughs, and still have that same counter action in, you know, to get the defense flowing one way and come back the other. The big thing with that is it's low risk. You just got to get the snap and hand off. So I want to see if we're in a 4-minute situation again in the future, maybe, you know, against Michigan State or Maryland, Wisconsin, Iowa. I'd like to see us kind of lean more on that complement of plays out of the I formation that we started to see against Purdue late. And then we kind of, I don't know if we got impatient. I don't know if that'd be a right way to describe it. But with the chippiness of the game, I think that our own staff and our own team wanted to keep piling on points because of how Purdue, you know, Purdue was talking a lot of shit in that game.
Right. I talk about pulling guards, you know, or pulling linemen, I guess, in general. Correct me if I'm wrong. In watching that game, it seemed like when we pulled to whatever side, to the motion side or the ball side, whatever, we were getting some backside defenders who were just racing in and causing some disruption in the backfield. You don't want that either. I feel like, I know there's not a good way to, you can't really like push a lineman or a linebacker off and then pull. Like, you got to be there. But I think that was just the situation of Purdue. They have a really good, was it linebacker? Is that
Jenkins?
Yeah, Jenkins. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy, that's a Sunday guy. Yeah. You know,
Emmett he's a little bit of that asshole you were talking about, though.
What was that?
He's a little bit of that asshole you were talking about, though.
Oh, yeah. Emmett Johnson's going to take probably a lot of shit in the film room this week. You know, when he tried to tackle Jenkins on the fumble return, he gets buzzsawed off of one of Jenkins' legs. You know, that's a dude. That's the kind of dude that, you know, for years we used to lament, why don't we have a guy like that on our defense? Now we got a whole defense full of guys like that.
Yeah,
that wreak havoc, you know. So offensively, though, to kind of finish up before we transition to the defensive side of the football, what
you're pretty quick to just get rid of that offense.
Well, you know, it gives me a lot of heartburn, a lot of agita to talk about.
But that offense did put up.
We do need to cover some more topics offensively.
But that offense did put up three touchdowns, including, you know, I mean, you mentioned Emmett Johnson, which again sealed it late, and you certainly mentioned Jalen Lloyd, but in that Malachi Coleman, who's going to take the top off the defense? That, I mean, when's the last time we saw us? Well, okay, that's not fair because that was last year with Trey Palmer.
No, but point taken.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's been a long time. Yeah.
You know,
and that 73-yard touchdown run that, again, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I'm sorry, sir. No, helped give Nebraska a 2-score lead going into the locker room. That was exciting, you know, because this has not been an offense that has created a lot of excitement this season.
No, they have not created a lot of excitement. in that 15-play, 87-yard drive for the first touchdown, it was methodical. We were, you could tell that Satterfield had game planned some rollouts for Haarberg. If he's going to sidearm it to the right, you might as well roll him out to the right and
give him every advantage you can.
Yep, and that's something that previous staffs really did not do here. That's why, like, when you look at what this staff does to maximize what the players can do and to minimize the liabilities out there on the field, this is a Big Ten coaching staff. We saw it for years. We saw other staffs do that in this conference, but we never saw our staffs do that.
Right.
Like that play where Haarberg threw a little dump off to Joshua Fleeks, who was lined up in the backfield. It's kind of on a mesh concept. That's the kind of stuff that you would see other coordinators in the Big Ten do, but Nebraska would never just simplify things, and just go out there and take what the defense, exploit the defense where they aren't, or scheme something open.
To that point, I feel like Nebraska's had a bad habit the last, we'll say at least 10 years of trying to be the smartest kid in the room.
Yes.
Yes. So I heard this every bit of 21 years ago when I was in radio school. And they said, brevity is the soul of wit.
It's a Mark Twain quote, and I agree 100% with that.
There's no reason to overcomplicate.
Yep.
Keep it simple, stupid.
It's always so tempting to overcomplicate things or to show that you're the smartest person in the room too, because it's self-congratulatory.
Right.
People. There's a reason why there's a phrase, don't get drunk off your own successes, because a lot of people enjoy getting drunk off their own success, and you just can't do that. Like Frost, the concepts that he ran, that he called, they were beautifully constructed. They looked great on a whiteboard. Just couldn't execute them.
But on the field where it mattered.
I mean, most of the time, like against Illinois in 2021 to start the season, we had guys running wide ass open all game long in their secondary.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have the offensive line to protect the quarterback, and we didn't have the quarterback to get the ball to them. So it was always something like that where it's like, okay, that's great. You're designing these great plays to scheme these guys wide ass open. Let's just simplify it, keep it simple, and just do what we need to do to pick up first downs and turn those first downs into trips to the red zone and convert in the red zone.
And that's kind of bringing it back, kind of full circle. That's not Satterfield or Rule's philosophy, which is, hey, you've got to scheme to the players you have.
Yep.
And I look at it with baseball, and the analogy that I write is like, look, if you're down 4 or 6, however many runs, one home run's not going to win you the game. You need base runners. You need guys to be on board, on base. You need singles and doubles. And then you move the ball or you move the runners around. I'm sorry, what's that, Hoss?
I was gonna say we're basically playing the football equivalent of small ball.
Yeah, exactly.
And it for what it is, it's enjoyable. When you're winning, it is enjoyable just to, by hook or crook, you're finding a way to get it done.
Right.
And it's comforting to be like, okay, this is not their philosophy long term. They don't want to be playing small ball long term. But right now it's like, hey, this is our best chance to win. And you know what's better than winning? Nothing. Stats don't, in that context, like when people, want to have great stats, go have great stats and lose pretty. We saw what we know what that feels like from 2021. It sucks.
Yeah.
It's like win ugly, go win a game. That builds a culture. Confidence begets confidence. And in the meantime, plug the holes in recruiting through the transfer portal, through continuous development. That's the thing. Like, I know some Husker fans are like, oh, well, Satterfield's got to go. What if it's like this next year? It's probably not going to be like this next year, because it's not like every guy on that offensive roster right now is going to stay exactly the same from 2023 to 2024. They're going to get better. They've already gotten better. You're already seeing development take place, and you're seeing incremental improvement week over week. Just like we said at the very beginning of the season, that we wanted to see a team that was better in game 12 than they were in game 1. And we've already accomplished that so far this season. You get to the Iowa game, and let's say that the Iowa game is the same kind of low scoring, bloodbath that Nebraska, Minnesota was to start the year. Okay. That's, the score that's pretty indicative of a Big Ten West football game.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's Nebraska, let's say it's Nebraska 17, Iowa 13, instead of losing 13-10, we're a better team in week 12 than we were in week 1, because that means in a game like that, we fixed the issues that prevented us from winning in game 1.
Right. Real quick, I mean, I just want to touch on the, and I know we've discussed these. I don't want to spend necessarily. We don't have to spend, but you talk about Nebraska's first scoring drive, 15 plays, 87 yards, almost 9 minutes of clock, 8:52 chewed up, and on Purdue's very next drive, about 4 plays in, throw an interception. Tommi Hill, I think one of 2 that he had in the game, and then I loved this approach, and it's one that I think is underutilized, or maybe it's attempted but never necessarily been successful. That's when Haarberg hit Jalen Lloyd for the 73-yard. And look, that was a thing of beauty, because it's been a long time since we've seen Nebraska not just score, but such good things happen in such quick order. We scored, we got an interception, and first play we scored again, and it went within in a minute and a minute and here we go. I see it of game time. A minute 49 seconds went from being relatively nothing to 14 zip, and that was the type of excitement that Memorial Stadium needed.
Agreed. And how often have we seen us in the rare event that we did generate a turnover in the past? How often did you see us just hand off to a running back on the next play, or run the quarterback draw, or do something that is just like not taking advantage of the situation psychologically, momentum, and not taking advantage of that big swing in momentum? We saw it too many times, and it really goes to show that Rule as a head coach, he reminds me a lot of the way Bill Belichick coaches. We can't have an episode without me mentioning Belichick. But
we could try.
He's totally dialed in to the flow of the game. You don't see too many game management things get away from Rule. About the only complaint that I have so far this year is probably running the option late against Purdue when both quarterbacks were just gas cans in terms of, being turnover machines.
I'm going to say it. If you're going to bring up double B every week, I'm going to bring up, if you run the damn ball against Minnesota, you don't lose at Minnesota.
We did run the damn ball.
Not at the end. Not when it was crooked. When you threw the ball 3 times, 3 incomplete passes, and then you have to kick the ball away. I'm telling you, you run the ball in the fourth quarter more.
I got you. For a split second, I was thinking of the last couple of drives. I agree because, again, that's not our identity at the time. Like 3 straight passes is not our identity. It hasn't been at any point this season. I agree with you.
All right. Well, let's talk about the other side of the ball, or one of the other facets of the game anyway. That's the defense, which did it again. They were put in some inopportune situations, and to borrow an old phrase, I've heard for a number of years from a number of sources, they made chicken salad out of chicken shit. Yep. Not only that, but they held for the first time in I don't know how many years, they held an opponent to less than 100 yards receiving, less than 100 yards rushing. All in all, 195 yards for Purdue. There was an interception. There was a fumble recovery. This defense, man, they're
blocked a field goal.
I don't know if I could put that under special teams. I didn't know which way to go.
It's defensive special teams.
Okay, fine. I'm gonna say this. I've been saying it. I've been beating this drum all season long. Quentin Newsome's my guy.
He's a great player.
He is. I'm so glad that he's here, because and knock on wood, his spotlight is shining brighter than ever before. He's finally got the opportunity, I think, show what he can do. He had the I believe a fumble recovery. He had the he didn't block the field goal, but he picked it up and ran the other way, and was high-fiving, I think, Tommi Hill down inside the 10 to the 5 and into the end zone. I've become such a bigger fan of it, and he's an elder statesman on the defense too. Like he's the guy, I think, fifth year.
I think he's a fifth-year senior.
And what he's brought, I think, to this defense, I don't know if there's a C on his jersey, but there should be.
I agree. And you know what's funny? A year ago right now, I know about a year ago right now, I took a step away from the podcast,
Yeah, we were going to talk about that sadness that you caused.
But, a year ago right now, if this would have been, if I would have been on then, we would have been talking about how it probably was going to take years, plural, to rebuild the defense. Tony White accomplishes it in one offseason.
It's crazy, right?
That's how good of a coach he is. That's why, the highest paid defensive coordinator in college football right now is Jim Knowles at Ohio State. He's making $1.9 million. When Dave Aranda was at LSU before he left for the Baylor head coaching job, he was getting paid $2 million a year. We need to make Tony White the highest paid defensive coordinator in college football.
I agree. I think we need to price every other school out of the market.
Yep. If you got to pay him $2.5 million a year, it's worth it, because without that defense, we're probably sitting at one or two wins, maybe even winless,
So Newsome's in there, had finished with 5 tackles. Phelan Sanford had 6, including half a tackle for loss and a fumble. I'm sorry, wrong line. John Bullock had 7 tackles. Isaac Gifford with 10 tackles, including 2 tackles for a loss, and he had a pass breakup. But it's, again, I love looking at this defensive list because everybody's busy. Tommi Hill had 2 interceptions, no tackles, but 2 interceptions. So again, his presence is felt. Cam Lenhart had a tackle, and Ty Robinson a tackle, but everybody's chipping in. Prince Will, Uman,
good job, good effort.
Uman Malin. Uman Malin, till I told otherwise. Couple of tackles. Henrich, Reimer, Omar Brown, who I feel like has been quiet since the Minnesota game, but he's in there. Omar with 4 tackles. I mean, just 8 tackles for loss again, a fumble, 2 interceptions. It was the kind of as you mentioned earlier, and this is no secret. This is nothing new. Nebraska defenses as of late have struggled to create turnovers, create opportunities. This is a different defense. If the offense could get there together, we might actually have a positive. I mean, I'm not saying throughout the rest. I mean, all season long, if the offense had their stuff together, we might actually have a positive turnover margin. And I could tell you the last time that actually happened at Nebraska.
Maybe 2009, but even then, offense turned the football over a lot that year too. One thing I wanted to say is when you got guys like John Bullock and Phelan Sanford in there, those are guys that in the past, we probably would have, despite the 5 Heart podcast name, we probably would have bristled up a little bit about, saying, hey, is this the best that we got? And that would have been, a multitude of reasons, hey, did we whiff in recruiting that badly on other guys that this is the only option we have left? Are we not developing, the more heavily recruited talent? But with this staff, they inherit these guys and then they just develop them. And that's what, I hate to say this, but Iowa, when you got like Josie Jewell from Nowheresville, Iowa, and Jack Campbell and Jack Kerner, guys that are from, they're playing small town football. And then we're over here at Nebraska recruiting highly recruited guys, and then Iowa's still putting together better defenses than we are in that time frame. But now we have the kind of staff that can develop those guys, which is going to ultimately help us in the long run because, even though we recruit very well nationally, it's still good to be able to have that local in-state footprint. And there is that cool thing about seeing guys from, Nebraska in the NFL.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Nebraska, so it's like, this is such a developmental program that Rule is building here. And to be 5-3 in year one through 8 games in year one with an offense that is in the, I think like the bottom 20 in the country in scoring offense.
It's not great.
Yet, it's pretty damn low. And yet still to have more than a puncher's chance to win your division. Like, I'm excited for what this thing's going to look like when it's operating at full sail.
Mm-hmm.
Defensively, when those pass rushers continue to develop and, we're starting to get, some of the DTs that the staff's after, or at least some of the linebacker prospects, it's going to be really fun to watch this defense evolve. It's going to be really fun to see the offense evolve. And, the developmental aspect of it kind of has a lot of roots with how the NFL likes to develop within their own systems. We're probably going to look a lot like a college version of the San Francisco 49ers is kind of what I kind of see that vision morphing into, especially offensively.
And both teams have a Purdy.
Yeah, yes. Both teams have a Purdy.
That's the only parallel I could draw.
I will say this: if you want to hear an outrageous thing, like if a weird season could get even weirder, it would be if Chubba Purdy had to step in these last 4 games because of injuries, and he pilots us to a division championship.
No more injuries, please.
Yeah, I'm just saying. At this point, like I forgot what it feels like to have confidence in your coaching staff.
Right.
That okay, for instance, last week, Turner Corcoran's out. Ethan Piper's out. We got a whole rash of new injuries going on. And I hear, it's going to be Teddy Prohaska, maybe Gunnar Gatula at left tackle, Justin Evans-Jenkins at guard, which Justin Evans-Jenkins is going to be a very good offensive lineman for us in the future.
I want to talk about that, but let's finish up your thought here.
Well, I was going to say is when I heard Gatula might get in, I thought to myself, in years past, it'd be like, oh, fuck, a freshman left tackle, great, But now with this staff, it's like, well, damn, they're going to have him ready as much as they can.
I feel like a freshman in their hands is like a junior in the hands of the previous coaching staff.
Yeah, absolutely. What were you going to say about Justin Evans-Jenkins?
Well, before we get there, because I feel like that offensive line needs a little bit of attention. People were saying, oh, Matt Rule hit Temple first year 2-10, Baylor 1-11. He's going to burn it down to the ground and then slowly build it back up. He has I don't know if he's exceeded his own personal, but he's definitely exceeded his own personal history with probably more work that had to be done.
And you know what? A lot of that comes from more experience. I think, I caught what he said on Good Morning Football last November. He was on Good Morning Football the day before Thanksgiving on NFL Network last year. And he talked about, even though he failed in the NFL, it made him a better coach. And Matt Rule seems like to dovetail with all our talk about incremental growth theory, Matt Rule seems like he's a big growth mindset guy. And you know what? I guarantee he doesn't view that as a failure in the NFL. He just views it more as a learning lesson. He probably took more lessons away from it. And he also inherited a better situation at Nebraska than what he inherited at Temple, than what he inherited at Baylor in the wake of the Bryles scandal. And so I always kind of figured, we'd be good for 5 wins in year one under Rule rather than just 1 or 2 wins. I mean, we're sitting at 5 with 4 to go.
And more wins on the table.
Yeah, more wins on the table. Wisconsin played Ohio State really well. There's no denying that. But at the same time, you look at Wisconsin, and they are severely challenged in many different ways, especially offensively. Maryland does not look as scary as they once did.
No,
Michigan,
they lost to Illinois or something, didn't they?
They lost to Northwestern.
Oh, that's right.
And Illinois.
Yeah.
Michigan State's in a state of free fall.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think they lost 7 in a row, 6 in a row. I think they started 2-0, and I think they're 2-6 now.
I'm on it. Standings. They are 2-6, 0-5 in the conference. Their only 2 wins have come at home, but they were to probably lesser teams when we get talking about. I mean, yeah, they played Richmond State and won that one big, and they played Central Michigan and won that one big. Got whooped by Washington. No surprise there. Washington's a top 5 team. They won their first 2, Central Michigan and then Richmond. I didn't even know Richmond had a football team. I just thought they had basketball. But then losing to Washington, Maryland, Iowa, Rutgers, Michigan, and Minnesota. So, and Michigan didn't pull any punches. They won that one 49-0. So, I mean, Rutgers, they played Rutgers close, lost by a field goal, lost by 10 to Iowa, lost by 23 to Maryland, lost by 3 scores to Minnesota. I mean, 27-12. It's not a good situation in East Lansing, and you're going to be there.
Yes, I am. And before we get to that, I just wanted to finish up the last thought on the last 4 games. I think that there is a legitimate chance that we find a way to win the West. Call it Kool-Aid, call it whatever. I'm going all in right here. I'm going all in.
This is me. I can't dance, but this is the best you get.
I really honestly think that by the time sundown on November 24th, Nebraska will be either the West champion that night or pending the results of a game the next day on Saturday, the West champion. And I'm willing to bet too that, we haven't really addressed the sign stealing that Michigan's done on here.
Do we need to?
I only on one front, because fuck, man, everyone does it. Everyone. Like if you read the article from The Athletic, they said that, they interviewed a guy who steals signs for another team, under the condition of anonymity. And he said he was like, everybody does it. The trick is don't get got. And he goes, and part of that, why Michigan got caught, is because they were sending people in person. They were like, you can get all that information in game if you know what to look for. They were dumb by breaking the NCAA rule about advanced off-campus scouting.
Gotcha.
And so one thing I want to say about that Michigan game is when we played them on September 30th, there were a lot of instances, and I noticed this more when we were on defense. There were a lot of instances where we would have a great alignment, we would be in a great call, and almost every time Michigan would check into a run that went the other direction from the blitz. Nobody bats 1,000 in that. I don't care how well prepared you are. So I do think that our defensive signals were stolen in that game. And offensively, maybe we eke out another field goal or a touchdown if, we're able to, play on an even playing field, in that game. Ultimately, I think our offense was always going to struggle. But I think our defense was good enough that I think in a game where our signals aren't being stolen, i.e. Indianapolis on December 2nd, if we were to make it there, I think you're looking at more of a game where it's Michigan 27, Nebraska 14. And honestly, I would probably celebrate.
Yeah. Yeah. Because even in a loss like that, you're
competitive.
You're competitive. You gain some credibility for what you're trying to do and what you're trying to establish.
Imagine if we go into Indy, if we were to do this, go in there at 9-3. You lose to Michigan, you go 9-4. Nobody's going to think less of you losing to Michigan while being competitive. 9-4, and with the Nebraska brand, that is all that pent up demand from not going to a bowl game since the Obama administration. That'll probably get us a bump in what bowl game we actually get selected for. Granted, I think 9-4 and the conference runner up, I think would probably get us into a New Year's Six bowl game.
Really?
I think the Citrus would probably look at Nebraska.
Well, we have some time to discuss that one.
But as far as Michigan State,
well, hold on now, because I dipped my toe, I put a pin in it. How do you think? I mean, Justin Evans Jenkins, we had we had quite a bit of new faces on the line. Joey Mancino, Henry Lutovsky, they were all listed as starters. What did you see from the offensive line?
Lutovsky still struggles at times. It looks like he's still trying to get used to the speed of the game, which could be a little concerning being a second-year player. But Justin Evans Jenkins is kind of in that mold of, Nuili, the German right guard. He's kind of in that same mold where he's an earth mover. He really is able to root guys off the line of scrimmage, generate top of the pad lift, and knock them back off the line. And so I think that him and Ben Scott there in the middle are a really solid combination there. I think Lutovsky's still going to continue to develop over time. I thought Mancino actually showed some decent things. And then also, I saw that link. Also, I think that Jacob Hood could develop into a good right tackle in the future.
It's funny. I apologize for what is going to come off as a very stupid question, but I'm looking in this, folks. I get our stats and things like that, or a little recap. And any time that I'm sounding like I'm reading something, it's because I likely am. I don't have that good of a memory. I'm not Haas. So what I'm looking at here is basically the starters for this past Saturday's game against Purdue. I see a quarterback, I see a fullback, I see a running back, I see 2 tight ends, I see a wide receiver, I see 4 offensive linemen, and I see 1 LB. Now, this might just be a mislabeling because it says Corver Dema, number 54. Is that do we have 2 number 54s? Like, would that have been Ben Scott, or who am I missing here?
Bryce Benhart's number 54.
Okay, so it's not me.
Yeah,
it's them.
Probably just a typo.
It's they just see numbers and they just whatever. So okay, well that so then let's talk about that link that I sent you here. I wanted to give you just a little bit of a heads up, but this is from On3. Look, this is all crystal ball stuff. We don't know how much of this is true, false, or somewhere in between. But the On3 is it OU board? I guess Oklahoma board, speculating that Grant Brix is a silent commit to Nebraska. And Grant Brix is a big boy with a big frame, but when you look at him, some God-given ability, certainly.
He's going to need to hit the weight room a little bit.
He's going to, And you look at his teammates running behind him, he's a man playing among boys, just size-wise. So, but he needs to hit that Division I weight room nutrition program and put on the right kind of weight. But if that's true, if Grant Brix is indeed headed to Lincoln, what does that mean for the future?
It means that they're able to sell the vision of what they want the offense to be moving forward. It means that, they're able to sell the development that he's going to receive. And getting a win like that, that's the kind of guy that traditionally has gone elsewhere within the 500-mile radius and been a very good player for somebody else. So that is huge to get that at Nebraska. So hopefully it pans out. It's a crazy last few months leading up to the early signing day in December. And it's always kind of, it's a little disappointing on the recruiting front with losing Kewan Lacey, the running back commit who decommitted last week, because, there's some people down in the state of Texas who think he's the best running back since Adrian Peterson to come out of the state of Texas. So
wow.
Hopefully,
high praise.
Yeah, very high praise. So hopefully there's the opportunity to kind of get him reeled back in, reaffirm his commitment. But it's kind of between Nebraska, Alabama, and Ole Miss. But I think the staff's doing a good job of being able to sell what they want this offense to look like moving forward. And I think getting a guy like Grant Brix would lend a degree of credibility. It would legitimize the Matt Rule era.
I don't know much about Brix. Is he from Oklahoma?
Logan Magnolia High School, Logan, Iowa.
Iowa, okay. I don't know why I thought Oklahoma.
Western, you know what they say about Western Iowa?
It's
Biggest
close enough.
Suburb of Omaha.
Do what?
Biggest suburb of Omaha.
You're right. All right, so
Iowa folks all lathered up.
And then, we talked briefly about Justin Evans-Jenkins. Just good to see him out there again, getting reps, building confidence, and like you said before, going to turn into something real special. So now, this Saturday, Nebraska, Michigan State, East Lansing. Haas, you're going to be there.
Yes, I am. Leaving Omaha at 7:30 a.m. and arriving to East Lansing probably 8:30, 9 o'clock Friday night, and get a good night's sleep, get a solid breakfast on board next morning, tamp it down with a few pregame beers, and go watch Nebraska beat Michigan State.
I'm going to try to preface this to the best of my ability, or not ask this in a way that, I don't know. What are our biggest concerns about this game?
Honestly, it's the cornered animal theory. They're in free fall.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to
lose
a coach next year. They're losing guys to the portal. They did kind of find a freshman quarterback late in the game against Minnesota that kind of generated something. So I think right now you got to be concerned about, if Purdue was talking shit last week about how Nebraska hasn't done anything in so long, Michigan State's probably looking at it like, hey, this is a great opportunity to remind Nebraska who they still are from the past few years, and defend your turf, defend your house, and get right. So I'm more concerned with them from a mindset standpoint. Nothing they do offensively or defensively concerns me. I think that the key to this game is if we come out on offense and we stumble and bumble around,
it's going to play into their hands.
Yeah, we can't give them too much hope. We can't allow them to generate some false sense of hope. What we need to do is we need to go in there and find a way to just basically punch them in the mouth right from the opening kickoff. Set the tone early. If it's kicking off to them, it's getting a good kickoff, and then it's setting up on defense and 1, 2, 3 and out, snuffing out a drive with a big sack of the quarterback. If we get the ball first on offense, I think it would do wonders for this team, our team, the psyche, and for the context of the game, to go down there and get an early score and show them, hey, we're rolling today. Because if we were to get up 14-17-0, I think that Michigan State will absolutely fold.
The one thing that Nebraska cannot afford to do is to receive the opening kickoff and then either on the kickoff itself or the next play give it right back.
Yeah, no, this is, you're on the road in the Big Ten Conference. You're in enemy territory. You got to have your shit strapped down tight.
Yeah.
And it comes down to start fast and then start the game fast and finish the game out strong. Do not have the fourth quarter of fumbles and weird option pitches and, just a general, lack of attention to detail. Be dialed in all the way until the clock hits 0.
It's feasible. I don't know when we're going to record next week.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting
with your travel schedule. Take your laptop. Maybe we can record from the hotel room that night. I don't know.
If we win, I'm gonna be out, probably partying or something,
rubbing it in their face.
Yeah. Then they'll probably be like, "Yeah, basketball season starts soon." I'll just be like, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah, well,
but it's not basketball season.
But it's not basketball season yet.
Nebraska. I'm gonna leave you with this: a prediction and a score prediction and a bold in-game prediction. Okay.
Bring it on. I don't know why I keep doing this. This is not a movie.
What is? I am going to say Nebraska 22, Michigan State 6. My in-game bold prediction is we pitch a shutout all the way until the last few minutes of garbage time.
Okay. Well, as you, the listeners, know I don't do my predictions here. It's not because I think less of Haas. It's just because I haven't formulated that prediction yet. So, but I'll tell you this much is going to be a win. I don't have a score yet. Tune in on Thursday. We'll go with Thursday for the score. But anyway, Haas, always great catching up with you, my friend. And I don't know if you know this, but people watch our show. People listen to our show. They join us live on for the 5 Heart podcast, and they say, Greg, I love your show with you and Haas. So we're doing good things here.
Who's our number one fans over there?
All of them. I can't pick a favorite. It's like picking a favorite child, Matt.
Who's the fan that had some awesome stuff about Deion Sanders in Colorado? What was his name? Fred
Sacco.
Yes.
Fred, if you're watching this,
big fan. You're a fan of us. I'm a fan of you.
There you go. And there we have it. That's this show. I just completely blanked how we get out of this show because I do too many damn podcasts. That'll do it for this episode of the Coronation Overreaction. Thank you all so much for joining us, whether you are watching us on YouTube or listening to us at home, at work, or in the car via the podcast app. If you're choosing, for my good friend and broadcast buddy Haas Reuter, I'm Greg Mahochko. This is Coronation Overreaction. Go Big Red.
Win the damn game.